Welcome back to another special episode of Know the Good, Good to Know, where we have a special guest. Well, we're technically the guests because we're not in our studio at the moment. We are in one of the most amazing buildings I think I've ever seen. It's impeccable. We're in fact at MAGPAS headquarters with Daryl.
Hello.
Who is the CEO of MAGPAS organisation. If you'd like to do a little introduction of yourself.
Excellent.
And what you do.
Happy we've tempted you out to wild Alconbury world out of studio. But welcome guys to MAGPAS Air Ambulance. My name's Daryl. I'm the Chief Exec of MAGPAS, and I've been working for the charity for 15 years, so I can't claim to be a newbie anymore. The charity will probably, hopefully, be familiar to some people listening to this. It's been going for over 50 years. It's just recently celebrated 54 years of life-saving operations, which is pretty phenomenal.
That's a lot of lives.
Yeah. So based in Cambridgeshire, we've got the use of an air ambulance and several emergency vehicles, and we're going out to 999 calls, not tending to be the normal day-to-day 999 calls. We're there for where the patient's life is potentially in danger, where we can take hospital-level treatment to those patients and hopefully save lives. And we do that across 12 counties to about 2,000 patients every single year.
Wow. Okay. Well, I was going to say, would you like to give us a nice little insight into what MAGPAS is? And you've just done it. Like I said before, the reason why we wanted to speak to you is one little instance I had, which was the boardroom cafe that I said about, and not obviously, like you said, there's a lot of people out there that do know what MAGPAS is, but we want to get a bit more recognition. Not that we can give you loads and loads, but we will hope to in the future once we get a bit bigger. So I think really and truly we should jump into some questions. And
well, we just had an amazing tour of the building, like we said.
Well, yeah, that's true.
So we're going to be repeating a lot of stuff. But, I mean, it's popped me up loads of questions, but we've got like a list here. We did send it to you before we arrived. But one of the big things, I guess, is from a personal perspective, what drew you to get involved in MAGPAS and what continues to motivate you in your day-to-day operations and what gets you up in the morning, basically?
Yeah, great question. I mean, I think I spend a bit of time going out and speaking to young adults, and one of the reasons I do that is I think that when you're young, you can really worry about your career trajectory and what you should go into and what you should study. And I think I'm a really good example of one of those people that ended up doing a job that I'd never planned to. And I think some of the most interesting people are probably in that position. The charity had been familiar to me, and a friend of mine back in late 80s, early 90s, when we were at school, had sadly died in a car crash. Her and her sister were killed in a car crash on the A10. The parents survived, which was quite incredible. But and the charity back then was local doctors, GPs in their communities. So it was a local doctor from sort of Royston way that had gone out and tried to sort of save the children's lives. So it was a charity that was familiar to me, and I simply saw an advert in the Cambridge News, as it was, for a maternity contract to come and work at the charity. So I'd just finished university, thought I'd sort of go and work in the city, get an exciting job there. And before I did that, thought actually let's go and do something a bit more local and something with a nice community impact, and sort of fell in love with it. And that leads me quite nicely onto what your second part of the question is what keeps me here. And it's what really in those 6 months made me think I have to continue doing this job. And it's getting to meet the patients that we've treated and the patients that have survived, and I can't quite imagine many jobs in this world that would give you the reward that this one does.
No.
But also you've just met the medical team, and I'm lucky in that sort of 50 doctors and paramedics, I consider most of them friends. I've known them that long. And I feel my job is, they've got the difficult job. They're the ones that are going out to the really horrible incidents, treating patients. And my job is to make sure that they've got everything they need to be able to do the best job they can do. And if I know when I see them go out, we've given them everything they need to go to that patient, and we'll support them when they get back, and help them, then we're doing a good job. And that's really rewarding.
You're doing a very, very good job. The tour, we got to see everything near enough. It's insane to see how much, or the level of things that you offer.
Yeah.
The staff members here specifically, to be able to do the job that they actually do.
Well, even the evolution in the last 15 years. When I joined, our head office was in a BP petrol station in St Ives. I'm relatively tall and I couldn't stand up in the office, so I spent a few years just stooping, great for my posture. And the helicopter was based at RAF Whitton in a really old RAF building.
So we used to drive past.
Unbelievable, so old, by the time we left, that building had no heating, no running water, and we were still operating from there. So the evolution of what I've seen charities go through in the last 15 years and how they've professionalised, and it's not just us, it's the whole charitable sector in the UK. It's quite incredible to see. When I joined, it was a voluntary service, nice when we were available but not essential, but now it's absolutely essential. We have to be available 24/7. So it's been an interesting growth that I've seen, not just us, the whole charity sector.
Oh, wow.
So leading on to the next question, I guess, what are some of the biggest challenges you faced, I guess, as a CEO in operations at MAGPAS, and how do you overcome them to keep that high quality care to the patients?
Yeah, well, it won't come as a surprise that the first answer to that is normally money. Whatever we do, we have to raise from the public, and that's a big task, particularly in recent times with the current economic challenges. So we have to raise about 6 million a year. Okay. And I think most people would be amazed to learn that we don't get any NHS funding. It's all raised from the public. And the majority of that income comes in really small donations, about 70% in sort of £1 weekly donations for our lottery. Okay. So it's people giving a smaller level, but giving as much as they can on a regular basis, and that's what keeps us going. So that's a challenge. Also, the people, making sure we attract talent and keep talent, and that's in the fundraising team, but also in the clinical team. And sort of semi-connected to that is, and probably something you'll come on to, but is then the well-being of the team. It's a really stressful job. They're going to some really traumatic incidents. So what it does occasionally keep me awake at night is how do we sort of protect them and care for them and make sure that it's not taking too much of a toll on those individuals, what they're seeing day in, day out. So some challenges that are probably quite similar to commercial entities, some that are a little bit unique to us, I guess.
We should probably go to the mental health aspect of things then. Like you said, they go through some traumatic experiences. What would you say, because obviously we've already done a tour and we've seen some of the things that you offer here, and compared to normal NHS stuff, to the facilities that you have, would you say that they're sort of the reason, not reasons, should I say?
Leading factor in...
into the mental health things.
Yeah, well, I think...
And what you offer for the staff, I guess.
There's probably two parts to mental health with MAGPAS, and one I wouldn't want to overlook as well is, I'm just going to cover this one first, is that increasingly a number of the patients that we go to, it's because of mental health issues, and that often isn't talked about. I think it probably should be. So when I joined the charity, intentional self-harm and suicide wasn't even on the top 10 list of patients we went to. It's now our fourth busiest category, and I think that's something we probably as a sort of society should talk a bit more about. And when I joined the charity, 2008, there was a big study in this country that found that the way a man was most likely to die up to the age of 40 in the UK was in a road traffic collision. I think everyone kind of knew that at the time. What most people don't realise is about 2 or 3 years ago that was overtaken by suicide.
Yeah, fully aware of that.
So for us, it's what can we do in the community to talk about mental health, to stop people getting to the stage where they hurt themselves. So that's one part of what the charity does, and something I think we should do more of and talk more about. But then obviously your question, the second part, which is really important, is the well-being of the teams as well. And I'm not clinical. I've occasionally gone out with the team to see what they do, so I have an understanding. But actually across the whole organisation, no matter where you work, you are a bit exposed here. You do hear about the type of incidents where people have sadly not survived, or it's a really bad. And I often think when I see the helicopter going off, people say, "Is it exciting?" And I have to say, in a way, yes, but actually the first thing I think is, somebody's probably having the worst day of their life right now. And so I'm always a little bit, I get that pang of, so for the team, in terms of how do we support them, we've got a lot of professional services available. which I think are a good thing to have, and most businesses should look into what they can do in terms of those formal things. But I know from talking to the team that it tends to be more the personal touch, and you'll hear the team refer to the MAGPAS family, and that might sound a bit flippant, but genuinely, I've never worked anywhere in my career, and I doubt I ever will again, somewhere that really does feel like you're working with your family, and everyone really cares about each other. So it's just sometimes checking in with people. We have mental health first aiders among the team, and they're really there just to spot, is somebody looking a bit stressed? Subtle changes. Is somebody not talking as much as they normally do? And looking for those and just talking and checking in with people.
Yeah, with that, is there, obviously all your staff are insanely trained to near like the highest levels.
Yeah.
With that, is there a lot of mental health training that goes along with that? So if they were to sort of see signs, they could sort of pick that out between themselves as such and say, are you feeling okay? And obviously, like you said, it's a family, so it's that general kindness aspect to it that makes it a lot easier. But is there a little an additional level of help?
Yeah, I mean, there's not much in the way of formal training, but we run training courses twice every year for new doctors and paramedics, and it forms part of that. So it's learning from the more senior doctors and paramedics that have been in MAGPAS for many, many years, hearing about their experiences and what they've done to spot colleagues in trouble. One of the things I think we do really well is it's a debrief. So it's immediately as the team get back, and we're always careful. We'd love to have visitors at MAGPAS. Anybody's welcome to come and see us, but we do have to be careful that when the team have just got back from seeing a patient, we do try and protect them and let them, because one of the things the best thing they can do is just have a really frank debrief when they get back, and just say exactly how they found it. Could anything have gone differently? Did they feel anything could have gone better? Or and just having that really honest exchange without any judgment, just let it all out, is I think one of the most powerful things, because otherwise you come away doubting, I think, yourself, and worrying after the event, could I have done this, could I have done that? Actually, one of the best things is just talk about it, talk it out, and you'll soon hear that everyone thought we did the right thing for the patient.
That's good.
Keeping on that, you said about training for mental health awareness and how to diagnose or spot symptoms of mental health. I've seen in the news, and I watch a lot of documentaries and stuff, and there seems to be like an increasing amount of ambulances that do get called to mental health situations, and maybe paramedics aren't trained, or I don't know how to explain it, able to manage them situations. Do you think there needs to be an improvement in that training aspect then?
I'm sure there could be. I think there has been a huge improvement in recent years. So in my experience, I think paramedics now, they're very well versed in mental health. I think one of the problems, trying not to get political, I promise I won't, is it's what services are available to support. When you're a paramedic and you're going into somebody's house and you're on a busy shift, and you know that person's in mental health crisis, but there isn't referral pathways, there aren't always the facilities in the community. It wasn't that long ago that the default pathway for somebody in a mental health crisis was to take them into hospital, and that's often not where people should be. So I think we're getting better, but there's so much more that needs to be done, and so much of that is sadly funding. It needs to be better funded.
Signposting is a big thing, right?
Yeah, that's one thing you touch on quite a lot.
Well, yeah, because I used to run for about 3 years a mental health group in the local community. Me and a friend, we ran a mental health group, and then we had men come and chat about mental health. We didn't.
It's just a talk.
It was literally just a room where people could have a chat, like you said, and we grew a little community. And the biggest thing we tried to push was signposting, depending on obviously what issues they were experiencing. If it was alcohol, for example, we'd try and push that signposting towards alcohol or drugs, etc. So that's, I always mention that on the podcast, don't I? About that's what needs to be improved, is signposting, where to go, because people, when you're in a bit of a mess and you're not sure where to turn,
who can you talk to?
Where can you?
And there are some amazing charities and community groups out there, and sometimes it's just raising the profile of what are some brilliant organisations that do exist. Sadly, they are often charitably funded, but they are out there.
Like you say about the everything being charity funded, and it is a shame that it's not more widely looked into, especially from obviously NHS do look into things like that, but to be able to tackle things like you said about the paramedics not necessarily being trained as or well versed in that sort of stuff, it'd be really helpful if they could be. But again, that would lead into a very political thing about government and all that sort of stuff, so we'd bypass that bit, because the focus of this is to talk about MAGPAS. With that, because I know we spoke about things like some of the stories that you had, and
yeah, incredible.
I remember the one you said the lady had a RAF guy behind her.
Yeah.
They were all well trained.
Yeah.
I'd like to, if you don't mind, sort of talk about some of their stories.
Absolutely.
Because I was going to ask you what's the most memorable story that you have, but I'm assuming it's one of the stories that is on the wall.
There are so many. So I think it's difficult. Nobody's kept exact count all the way back 50 odd years, but we know it's over 80,000 patients.
Wow.
So it's a staggering number. And I would say there's not probably a week that goes by at MAGPAS where I don't hear of a patient case that we've been to that I go, wow, like it's just so unusual what the team dealt with. In most cases, we're really careful. I wouldn't talk publicly because patients are still dealing with the emotional trauma of that. So, but there are a number where often it takes a while, but the patients come back and say, I'm okay, I'm in a good place, I'd like to talk about it, and I'm happy to talk about it publicly. So there are so many, and you saw, the hallway where we've pulled a few iconic ones out. One that I did mention that's a bit old now, but I got to meet him, and it's still an incredible story, is Tom. And Tom was a tree surgeon, and I kind of don't need to go any further, but you guessed the ending. He slipped in the tree and run the chainsaw through his neck, severed a third of his neck and severed his jugular vein, and it was only because of a specific piece of equipment we were carrying, Celox gauze, that had only ever been used in the military before, and it was the first time we'd ever used it, that his life was saved. 26-year-old man that you just think, that was a few years ago now, to see the life he's gone on to lead. But yeah, there are so many, and to the point where I've even been in the States, in California, and turned on CNN when I was getting ready and saw a MAGPAS incident being broadcast in America, where I just did an absolute double take thinking, hold on. So some of the stuff we go to has made national and world news, particularly major incidents as well. And some of our doctors were some of the first doctors on scene for the 7/7 bombings in London, Potter's Bar rail crash. So, it's some of the type of incidents. You sort of think you've seen it all after a few years, but every year something else happens and you think, wow, I have not seen it all. But
with that then, because I remember what you said about the gauze and this, how it's an innovation in medical sort of technology and how well it worked and how it saved a man's life.
Yeah.
It's managed to cut a third of his neck
off. Yeah.
I mean, we'll get into some gruesome details. I'm pretty sure you said it. The jugular was severed and all sorts.
Absolutely.
So that's a very big thing to sort of get past and be able to have your life saved from that point.
Yes.
Is there any other sort of technological innovations that you have seen that have allowed you to do sort of better or quicker care, I suppose, and save lives from the brink, I guess?
Yeah. I mean, all the time. I would say over the 15 years I've been here, I've seen countless innovations. One thing, and we did mention it before we came on here, was that the speed at which that's coming through now is staggering. I think things that would have taken 4 years to develop, like coming out every month. So we're constantly scanning the horizon for what's next. And at the current, we were evaluating some new monitors. Ours are about 4 years old. They were cutting edge 4 years ago. They're not now. We would need probably 6 of them. They're 20-odd thousand each. We're up into hundreds of thousands of pounds to replace them all. We were just about to go through that, but actually we know in about the next 3 months, the next set of models that are coming along are transformative. So we're sort of, okay, we'll bide our time for another 3 months because we know what's coming is going to be revolutionary. But in terms of other things, at the moment, we've just started with blood on board. So we did 2 studies. clinical studies of blood. So we used blood products, so packed white blood cells, lyoplasm, the type of things that are used in the NHS. And we followed sort of 300 patients through to survival and recovery to check what difference the blood products made, not normally carried by air ambulances historically, but actually what we think is potentially whole blood, which would be used in a military setting, which isn't used in the NHS. That might be better product, because these are patients that are injured in cars or at home that are bleeding out, that, you know, they're not in a hospital, they're in a hostile environment potentially. So we've just finished a study of 900 patients where we've taken part in a national trial to see what blood will do. But I think the one that I'm really watching with interest, as I know most people are, is AI in terms of diagnostics and screening. And I think there's so much more we carry in our pockets now, or the doctors and paramedics carry a mobile ultrasound machine that's sort of the size of a mobile phone that can look for internal injuries, and even better than that, we can then upload those images to the receiving hospital and the surgical team, or have a surgeon looking at those remotely and advising. I mean, all that stuff, sort of telemedicine and AI, I think is going to change what we do beyond recognition in the next few years.
100%. I work in clinical trials, and our company is a clinical technology company, and that's basically what we do. And we've just released a big AI sort of system to look at improving technology we can provide to gather data for clinical trials. So AI is huge talking point at the moment.
It will,
huge.
It will massively revolutionise just everything, every sort of work-based
gathering,
aspect,
collecting,
medical
processing data,
everything. It'd be insane.
I think it'll be a seminal moment. I think when you think back, you had sort of the introduction of the internet that sort of changed humankind. I think this is going to be up there. This will be AI is going to be, and if it's used for the good, as it could be, it's going to be incredible.
I think that's the key thing. Hopefully it will be used for good more than anything
I think
else.
so,
Kind of scary, but
it is worrying.
Absolutely.
You've got the whole aspect of Skynet just coming in, and it's like, oh no.
To keep on the point of technology innovation, we looked around the building. You said the whole building's been designed for maximum output and operation efficiency, I guess. Where did you get the ideas from in terms of your training rooms, where certain rooms are positioned, general outlay of the building?
Yeah, so we took 6 years from sort of the initial concept through to completing the building, and that seemed like a really long time, and it was frustrating to the team. But one of the reasons we took so long, one, we had to raise nearly 9 million to build it, which was amazing. Thanks to the public, we were able to do that. But the other was really thinking about that design. And we're really lucky in the UK in terms of how open and collaborative it is. So every air ambulance in the UK that I know of, 21 charities, opened their doors to me and said, come and look at what we're doing, what we're thinking. And we, I think, were able to go around and take some of the best of everything. And everyone was really open and said, oh, we did this and it didn't work very well, or we'd done this differently. So that and managing to get out a couple of places within Europe as well, and looking at what they were doing there, where it's funded through private insurance mainly. So there's a bit more money around. So, we were able to really take our time. I think the biggest thing, though, which is so simple that gets overlooked, was listening to the team. That sounds so simple.
It's their day-to-day job,
but
right?
We got 50 experts here. The problem is they've got 50 opinions, so you're never gonna satisfy everybody. But genuinely saying to them, what can we do that will make this job quicker and easier for you? And for us, it's the minutes matter in dispatch. If somebody's having a cardiac arrest, or if we can shave off a minute or 2 minutes, the survival rates for cardiac arrest drop by 10% for every minute that goes by until you get CPR. So if we can save 2 minutes in activation, that's going to save somebody's life. So it was really listening and reworking, and our poor architects and designers that just got endless reworks in the design.
I know,
but
all too well.
They were amazing, and I think they absolutely nailed it. I'm biased, but other people that visit and other air ambulances and the medics say this is up there in terms of the design and how quick they can get to a patient. So,
but then I guess that works in a circle, right? So other charities can come to you and say, this is where, look at what you've got.
Absolutely.
So when they're in that position where maybe they're building a new building or extending.
So we've
You
got
can
Devon Air
provide that.
Ambulance coming, I think next week, their
wow.
entire senior team. Yeah, we've recently, with a number of air ambulances. It's always open, come and look and learn. And it's great. It's really good that it's collaborative.
Well, it's like you said beforehand, you had a sort of discussions with other organisations where you found ideas that were like, oh, maybe we
Really
use those,
helpful,
and it
really
continues
helpful.
on from
Yeah.
you to do the next thing.
Absolutely.
With that, well, I suppose we should probably shine a little light on even the simplest aspects of this building, which was from the staff entrance or the medical team entrance in straight to the lockers,
Yes.
straight to a gym.
Yes.
And sort of touching on the mental health thing, where
Yep.
if they don't want to talk to somebody, they can go straight in, straight out.
Yep.
If they need to. And it's, like you said, it's such a simple thing.
Yeah.
It's such a simple design. Same thing with the washroom. I don't think it's called the washroom though, where they can just...
Sluice. It's not a very
Sluice,
nice
that's the one.
name, but it's not nice.
I
but-
should have been in my
Washroom's
memory.
nicer.
Yeah. But yeah, it's just such a simple thing just
Yeah.
to save, like you said, so much time.
Absolutely.
And it's a game changer, I can imagine, before you had this, because the other base, I'm assuming it wasn't as nearly technologically advanced or laid out as well as this.
I was
building.
going to say shed.
Yeah.
I thought that might be a bit unkind to our RAF hosts, but yeah, I mean the old building. Joking aside, the windows had a sign in them that said how many sandbags were required to cover up each window. So that gives you a sense of the age of the building.
Yeah, just a bit. I can imagine there was a massive sigh of relief once this building was finished. And
Absolutely.
everyone thought, oh my, this is like the next level.
Yeah.
Okay, so in terms of sustainability and growth
Mm-hmm.
for MAGPAS, there's two questions I'll ask. One of them is about sustainability and growth
Yep.
and how you see the vision over the next 5-10 years. Obviously, like you said, you rebranded, you've got a nice new building.
Yep.
What's next to advance critical care to keep obviously at the pinnacle of
Yep.
what you do?
So I think we when we talk sustainability, we talk two things. Firstly, we do talk environment, and that's becoming particularly when I go and speak to young people, it's one of the common questions which surprises me.
Okay.
And it's a difficult one for us. We fly a helicopter that emits a lot of carbon. We don't really want to reduce the amount of flights because if people need us, they need us.
Yeah.
But we do genuinely have to think about the future of the planet and what can we do in other ways to reduce our carbon impact. So looking at things, reducing such simple stuff, reducing the amount of printing across the organisation. To the furthest extreme, last year we were able to plant 2,000 trees on site. So amazingly, Woodland Trust donated some trees and we got about 220 community groups, businesses, individual volunteers that came up over the wettest, muddiest weekend you could imagine.
I was told
to
by
plant.
one of the volunteers. I was told it was,
I was
a very bad day.
Weighed down with mud on that day, but it was amazing and just showed what the community can do when they get together. But the amount of carbon that a tree can absorb, a ton of carbon, 2,000 trees in their lifetime will go some way to offsetting. We've also got 100 solar panels on the roof, so we generate a lot of energy here. All of the lights and sensors are on a PIR, so they go on and off, which is great unless you sit at your desk for too long and then you're suddenly in darkness. But all those little designs that I think go some way. So that's the first. But second, which I think you really touched on there, we think about the sustainability as the funding as well. We ask a lot of people to give a lot of money, and we're so thankful that people do. But what can we do that keeps on inspiring people to give? Because we need to ensure they feel like the money's making a difference, which it genuinely does. But how do we engage with them? So there's a lot of thought that goes into that. And then a bit of both then is also looking at innovation. So I've had a really interesting conversation only this month with a company based in Germany designing sort of the first electric and hybrid helicopters. I had been saying for years that this is 30 years down the line, it's not going to happen, we're so far off. I was blown away by what this company are doing and the orders they're getting from America and Germany in the hundreds for what could be, and potentially, an autonomous electric aircraft that could fly 200 kilometres on a single charge and would be no downtime in terms of servicing. And it's so close, so we're looking, can we partner up with them and start to design what might be the first sort of electric or hybrid for the UK.
Exciting.
So that really excites me because that's the environmental angle, but also financial. These are much cheaper machines to service and run than a conventional combustion engine.
Less drive, just one drive.
Absolutely. So I think that is coming. And then we also touched upon it, didn't we, in terms of the innovation in terms of new equipment. And I don't know if the number of patients we go to will drop every year. I think maybe it will. Cars get a bit safer, but actually every year it goes up. So obviously sometimes that's driven by population growth. It's driven a bit by an aging population. Sometimes it's health and lifestyle choices.
Do you think
as
also
well
be part of how far you can now reach? Your reach?
Yeah, that's grown massively. Yeah, so last year over 2,000 patients across 12 counties. So the geography grows. But yeah, I don't think there'll be a massive decrease in the patients that we go to. The type of instance we go to might change. So it's all around how do we innovate to ensure we keep up with what the patients need.
Adapting to needs, of course.
Yeah, definitely. But that's a good point you made a second ago about growth. And it's probably an interesting thing to talk about, which is when we said about the overlap with other organisations from different areas. And I don't think a lot of people would know, like you said, when we were talking about it, that some people get a bit confused or a bit downhearted when their local organisation hasn't saved them. So, I mean, if you'd like to sort of repeat basically what you said about that it's really good. I mean, it's a good thing. It's a very positive thing that there is overlap because it saves more lives. But
so we are a little bit lucky because our name, everyone goes, what does MAGPAS mean? And there's not many people around that do know what it means. But at the time it was set up, piloted around 69, 70. The police region was mid-Anglia. They were all GPs. Then they aren't anymore. They're normally from emergency medicine or anaesthetics now, or paediatrics, and they created an accident service. So the acronym has got such a history you wouldn't sort of dare change it. I did dare to try and change it and got into a lot of trouble. It stays. But also it hasn't got the geography in the title. So if you think of not every, but the majority of air ambulances in the UK that would come to your mind, they're normally a county. Essex Air Ambulance, Lincoln Air Ambulance, Scotland Air Ambulance. They all have a county. So we're a little bit lucky in that we don't. It does us a disservice because sometimes I think people locally in Cambridgeshire and Bedfordshire don't know that we are their local air ambulance, but it actually means that when we do hop into other counties, it doesn't worry people too much. But yeah, you're right. People do sometimes get a bit upset and say, why did I don't know, East Anglian Air Ambulance treat a patient near to our airbase? Well, that would be because we might have been treating a patient elsewhere, and that's a good thing, and we would do the same in their territory. And it's a really good thing that we are so collaborative and open to that, because ultimately what matters is the patient needs the care. Whoever can get there the quickest gets there. And and also what people don't realise is in many cases where there's multiple trauma, I think we had a case recently which broke the record of 4 air ambulances on scene, and we were one of them. So where you're talking multiple casualties, I think on that instant we had, would you believe it, I think Yorkshire Air Ambulance, Thames Valley Air Ambulance, ourselves, and one out sort of Coventry way as well. So the air ambulance service. So 4 on scene. And I would tell you, if I was injured or sick or needed an air ambulance, I wouldn't mind what logo's on that air ambulance.
That was the thing that got me. I was like, surely you can't have people moan about not having their local...
I don't think the people that need the care do. I think the bystanders that see it land go, why is that air ambulance in this territory? But
not happy that this person's being saved, just the fact that it's not there local, as if, no way.
So I'm just conscious of time, but I just wanted to ask, could you throw me some stats about MAGPAS? I do love the stats.
I like my stats too.
I have my own little segment.
Kindred spirits.
I usually have a segment on the show called "Wow, that's good to know," where I do facts, because I love that sort of stuff. So
I can tell you, my nephews and niece call me useless facts man. So there you go.
I'll leave you guys to it. You just guys get a beer and get a beer together.
Could you just throw me some stats on MAGPAS and maybe you've got numbers and patients or
A good one to start with is cardiac arrest. So cardiac arrest is a growing area for us. It's one of the biggest categories we go to now. And it is sadly, in this country, we don't have the best record. And this is a sensitive subject, I know, but I think it's one that should be spoken about. In the UK, the survival rates are really low, the lowest in the developed world. Wow. And I looked at a stat when I joined that out of hospital, and the majority of cardiac arrests happen out of hospital. At that stage, the survival rate in the UK was 3 to 5%, which I just think is staggering.
Yeah, it really
People
is.
wouldn't understand that. And in the Scandinavian countries, that's 70-80%. In some US states, that's over 50%.
Wow.
So we looked at, well, what are they doing differently that we're not doing? You know, we're a relatively small island.
Yeah.
You're never that far from a hospital, really, not compared to America, Australia or Canada. And it's around CPR, being taught CPR in the community, and public access to defibrillators. So we took the stance then, we set up the Community First Responder Scheme for Cambridgeshire, so trained up over 400 volunteers across 42 schemes, equipped them with defibs in their communities, and that still runs today. Now by the ambulance service, we handed it over. It was so successful. And the survival rates in Cambridgeshire we are seeing go up and up and up. So the last stat I looked at, we were over 20% in Cambridgeshire. That's a big growth.
Just awareness.
It's a really big growth. But there's still more we can do. But a good stat as well, we did a survey of cardiac arrest patients that we went to in the course of a year 2 years ago, and only 8% had bystander CPR.
Really?
Which again, far too low. When we spoke to people and said, why hadn't you done CPR? One of the common answers, which surprised me, was particularly when it's a female patient, and particularly when it's an older female patient, people are worried about injuring the patient, and they're worried about patient dignity.
I was going to say, actually, one of the big things, correct me if I'm wrong, is that people don't understand that they can't do any worse than what's actually happening.
Correct.
So they can only actually do good in that position. And you're not, again, correct me if I'm wrong, but they say you do your CPR, but the main thing is just to get people there to the scene, right?
Yes, as
you
quick as
call
possible.
for your 999.
Yeah, before. Always do that before,
And you can't do more damage than what's been done already.
And also people worry, and we're probably the same age of remembering about how many breaths do you do to how many compressions, and that stresses people out. And actually in America they've done away with breaths altogether, because actually when you compress the chest to the depth that you need to, when you release, naturally the buoyancy of the lungs pulls in some air. And actually the most important thing is to keep the blood moving. And I'm sat here looking at a mannequin that we've got here in the centre that actually lights up and shows you the compression depth you need to do to get blood up to the brain. So we bring people in and teach them that. So we've got an amazing community trainer, Nick, and I'd say to anybody listening to this, if you have got a community group or a business, talk to us. Nick will come along and teach everybody how to do CPR, and Nick's been doing that for a while with us now, and she's training on average, I think last year 8,000 people single-handedly she trained, and last year when we looked at the stats, 16% of our patients had bystander CPR. So I think what we do in getting this message out there is starting to work. It needs to be much higher.
Do you think it'd be wrong to do it in schools or not?
It's compulsory. We lobbied again. It's a good thing that we did collaboratively across the UK. We lobbied the government, and we got it onto the national curriculum with others as well, British Heart Foundation and others. And so now we go into schools and teach. And our trainer says children pick it up far quicker than adults and don't have that fear. And we know children that have used it. It's amazing.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, wow. That's amazing sort of thing to hear, especially
young children.
Because I said on a podcast a while back, obviously you said Scandinavian countries are much more well versed in that sort of aspect.
They are.
It's way more, I suppose, taught to more people. And that's one thing that we used to say, which was we're very jealous of said Scandinavian countries because they are so much more advanced than what we
in some way really are
in terms of their, like you say, signposting and teaching people those necessary skills that it's a life-saving skill to know.
Yeah, absolutely.
But yeah, it's good to see that it's actually going to schools now. So, fingers crossed that those numbers keep rising and they keep getting better and better.
And then on a slightly lighter stat, one that just will, I think, amaze people, we did a count up of the miles of the cars and the helicopter last year. So we clocked them and did over 100,000 miles in the year, which was phenomenal. And when we put that into, this is Google stat, not my stat, that is 4 times the circumference of the globe, which from little base in Cambridgeshire, I think is pretty amazing.
It is. That's insane. Going back to what we were saying about sort of most of it's all of it is donation based.
Yes.
What would you say is a good way for the community to sort of get involved with MAGPAS, and how can they sort of benefit MAGPAS as such?
There are so
Really
many
good
ways, so many ways. Number one, I'd say come and see us. Just come along and find out a bit more about the charity. We love to talk to people, as you can probably tell, and we're very friendly, I promise. But yeah,
really
come in and talk to us. We're always on the need for volunteers. So there are so many events happening across the county where people are raising money for the charity. And one thing I've always been as chief exec and the trustees is really keen to not employ a lot of staff on fundraising, so we always want the money that's raised by the public to go to the service.
That's good.
And last year our stat was 20% on overhead and fundraising and 80% to the service, which is a really high stat. So we always need, I only have so many hours in the day and I do a lot of evenings and weekends, but I can't get everywhere and the team can't get everywhere. So come and volunteer, go to a country show or go out and give a talk to a community group for us. We've got all of the materials, and whatever time you can give. And then financially, I mean, anything, people that are sporty, that do runs, or we're always looking out for people to do that for us. Marathon places.
We laugh because
I talk running every podcast.
There you go.
Nearly every single time. Yeah,
great.
so
Good for mental health as
running,
well.
I'm running Cambridge next year for MAGPAS.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Amazing. So there's that way. People hold bake sales and coffee mornings, and all the way through that I think is quite nice that most people don't talk about because we're British and we're shy about these things, is leaving money in your will as well, because we tend to accumulate wealth through life and property and money and hopefully we have families and loved ones to pass on to, but a small gift in a will to a charity, to MAGPAS, makes a really big difference. So many ways. And this year as well, things like Christmas cards are on sale for MAGPAS, so if you can afford the stamps, which is a challenge these days, if you're going to send Christmas cards, come and buy some MAGPAS Christmas cards.
That's good. With that then, not to put you on the spot or anything, are there any sort of events or something that are going on relatively recently, or sort of in the upcoming months, maybe weeks or so, that people can get a sort of...
Yeah, I was actually going to mention the Cambridge Half the Marathon as well.
Yeah,
that's always we're on the hunt for that. We've got a very topical and recent current one, fireworks. So what were the fireworks held at the Huntingdon Racecourse have been in aid of MAGPAS for years now, which is amazing, and raised thousands of pounds for us. This year we are moving those across to Abbots Ripton, and tickets are on sale. So, and it is, I would have to say, one of the best firework displays I've seen. It's really high end. So it's actually a former MAGPAS volunteer who's now a paramedic who runs the fireworks with her company. They're really incredible. So it's a good day out, and all the money comes to MAGPAS, which is brilliant.
Amazing, yeah. Oh, okay, nice. Have you got any other,
No, I'm all good.
questions? Oh, wow, okay, fair enough. Well, I think we've taken enough of your time. You've got
absolute
a lot
pleasure.
of important work to do. And
Really enjoyed it. Thank you.
Yeah, no, thank you.
So you can catch us again next week for another episode of Know the Good to Know.
Yeah.
If you're listening and you want to send us an email, please do at KTGGTKpod@outlook.com.
As usual, we are posting lots and lots of stuff on our socials, or at least I try to. You can find us on Instagram at KTGGTKpod, TikTok at it should be hashtag, should I say, Know the Good to Know Pod, and Facebook is Know the Good to Know Podcast. And you will probably soon see another MAGPAS post be put up. Very, very soon.
But that's it from us, so thank you very much, and stay positive.
Stay positive.